She will too. She
Probably.
will.
Yes, let's move on from that. But no, typically, I mean, we're talking about Western culture advancing a certain way, and then a non-Western culture rolling those things back, looking at the West as decadent, looking at the West as you know anathema to their values, and you can see why that culture clash is coming, because there have been, and we're looking at it from the side of the West, by the way, where we accept now things in 2014 that 100 years ago were pretty radical, i.e. women voting. And unless you're looking at things with those Western values and that Western history, other people are not looking at it that way. So obviously, the problems with that radical Islamist trend, that Sharia trend, come from, in part, either a rejection of the West values or a complete misunderstanding of them, or the way in which they're interpreted for them. I don't know. But we're also very guilty of looking at things through our Western eyes and thinking everybody knows that women are not property. That's a Western cultural phenomenon in a lot of ways. That's not universal.
That doesn't make it any less true, and that's not what you're trying to say. It's just that there are cultures that don't get it. They haven't gotten to that point yet. And I would say that how many more school shootings, how many more dead kids does it take? And the person that they were doing these killings because of, saying that they were doing it because Malala Yousafzai got a Nobel Prize. I mean, they already tried to kill her. I mean, they already tried. She was shot. It was not looking good for a very long time there for her. So how much more of this can they take? How much more of this are they willing to deal with before something happens, before you get a cultural shift? That's a huge situation, a huge point for this whole culture that we're talking about, and hopefully that point comes sooner than later.
And when we're looking at Hillary Clinton and talking about empathizing with other cultures, you've said it before. We've talked about it from Neil Stevenson. Some cultures are better than others, and you can see that in a lot of the outcome, the proof of that respect for life is a value that we take for granted. Mostly, there's a cult of people that don't in our country, but you know what I'm saying, if you know what I mean. But that sort of Western value system, whatever its faults might be in letting people run around and do things they want to do rather than obey and follow and comply, it just shows we're superior. It's that other cultures are rejecting it because it doesn't fit their worldview. But still, Western civilization, yay. I will always say Western civilization is superior. Just the outcomes alone give you that example. I mean, you don't find religious factions now wandering around different places and shooting up, children in schools because they're ticked off at somebody honoring someone else. I'm sorry, that's an inferior culture, and I'll say it all day long, every day.
Yeah, I have some friends that are Muslim, and I've grown up with some neighbors who are Muslim who are great people. And the thing I don't understand, and Chandra was trying to be politically correct earlier in saying it's not Muslims, it's the Sharia law followers and things like that. But when I talk to those people, they'll tell me face to face, yeah, it's bad what's happening. My family that's still there hates it. They wish they could get out. We've been back a few times, and it was really hard. Like, one girl talked about how they were in the bazaar with her and her brothers, and a man touched her or said something to her. She turned around and started talking back to him, and her older brother grabbed her and took her. I was like, you do not say that. She's like, it's a good thing I'm not living there because I'd be dead by now. But so they don't support it, but why are Muslims not speaking out? Why is there not a Muslim coalition of Muslim Americans or Muslims from those countries coming out and saying, we don't approve of these actions, we don't approve of these tactics? They'll say it in private sometimes. That's
Well,
my issue with it. That's why I don't bother being politically correct. It's like, if there's over 1 billion Muslims, they say this is a rogue group of a few people, maybe a few hundred or a few thousand that are doing these acts. So why don't the rest of the billion stand up and stop it?
well, I'm going to add too that you're talking about breaking a cultural norm that is centuries old. It isn't something that you do overnight. And we've only broken that cultural norm within the last 100 years. It'll be, well, it's 96 years. Let's see, I'll carry that to 94, 95 years. So, carry the two, yeah, that's right. So, it really hasn't even been that long here in our culture. It's just that our generation grew up with that, so it was a norm, not something that was new. And I wonder how long the suffragists had to campaign to get that done. Was it just a couple of years? I suspected decades, and I think, if I remember correctly,
it was a couple of decades of suffragettes doing their thing. But you know what? Even in medieval England, going in and massacring 100 students because you don't like what somebody else did would have been seen as a cause for war.
Well, it would have been, it actually wouldn't have caused war, it would have been an act of war.
Exactly. So even in our most unenlightened medieval times when women were still chattel, our society, our humanity was such that we wouldn't have done that. We wouldn't have held a school of 400 children hostage and then massacred them all. We wouldn't have done it. Actually, there were, I'm going to correct myself, and I know anybody who's listening to this who knows history, there have been, and there were, I believe, in that era, some pretty massive atrocities, and certainly during the Crusades, there was the whole cultural thing of, if your enemy did not surrender, then you were obligated to go kill them all, including the women and children, and that was something that happened in some of the earlier Crusades because it was a part of the policy of war. Those were actually the rules of war. But we evolved past that hundreds of years ago.
Well, I was going to say, if you want open slaughter,
we were allowed to vote. We
look
wouldn't
at the
have
Mongols.
1700s.
Look at the Mongols. They wiped out entire children to the man, to the person. I mean, wiped it out. That's one reason why they were able to roll over everybody, is because they're serious about it.
Fear, yeah, and that's so the tactics that the Islamists are using, and calling them terrorists misses the point because that's a tactic, and they're using their religion as the rallying point because they don't have a nation, they don't have the uniforms of a nation under which they under that is the flag that they fly. They have the flag of ISIS. Their religion is the flag under which they fly. So we have to kind of use their religion as a term to describe and group them because they do. That's their self-definition, is that they are soldiers for Allah. And they are using battlefield tactics of 500 years ago.
Well, to be honest, it was the Mongols that taught them that, because if you look carefully where the Mongols practiced that, it was where they are now, Afghanistan and Iran. That was where the Mongols burned those cities to the ground.
They're using the tactics of their leader, or their their Muhammad, the guy who got the whole religion started for him in about the 1400s.
Yeah.
Or when did Islam come along? 500, 1400? I don't even know.
I have to go back and look. I think it's about 1400. 700. Felicia Cravens. It's about 1400 years old, if I recall. Okay. So,
I think the main point, the crux of what we're talking about, and something that was mentioned in the chat by George Templeton, the thing that we're talking about, why it is that more Muslims don't come out and talk against the terrorist acts. When the guys that you would be decrying are clearly willing to kill anyone who is in opposition to them, it kind of puts a damper on conversation. That's it's generally not a helpful thing to getting dissent out there when in response to that dissent you are likely to be killed for it. It's one thing to have freedom of speech. It's another thing to have freedom of speech. If freedom of speech comes, is a natural right, but that freedom of speech, when you're in a place where talking about these issues gets you killed, I can understand why so many Muslims are not speaking out about it outside of the U.S. I mean, inside the U.S., we've had people talk about it, but maybe it's not enough. I don't know. I will say that I understand if you are in in the Middle East and you don't want to talk about the Islamic terrorism that goes on and don't want to talk about the horrific atrocities. I get it, because you don't want that to happen to you. You don't want that at your doorstep.
Right. We've talked about how conservative business owners don't donate politically because they know that they will be harassed by the left, and they don't want to have to lose their job like Brendan Ike did. So, we have the bullies here who intimidate people politically. That's 1/10 of the risk. And we have very successful, very strong, tough executives, high-powered executives that cave to that pressure. And all it is financial pressure. Whereas you have people over in the Middle East who actually put their lives on the line, literally, and they do die for it regularly. So yeah, I'm with you on the, if you're a Coptic Christian in Egypt, just do what you can to get the hell out, and then speak against it. Just get out, because there's no other way. I mean, I don't know how this. I don't know how this ends without a lot of bloodshed, which there's already been a lot of bloodshed, but I think it's going to be worse. And all I can hope is that we stand strong for our American exceptionalism and do continue to understand and promote and fight for the fact that our way is better. It's not a brag, it's a fact. Just like Texas is better. No brag, just fact.
Hey now, that's...
Yeah.
You're outnumbered, JD. Totally not.
Well, he's a Jets fan. It's in his
three
nature.
of us here. 3 Texans on this call, man. 3.
What did I do? Every week
you and Ryan and Chandra are just toast.
And
toast.
It's like, man, it's rough. Felicia pointed out in the group chat that major props to Bill Maher for continuing to talk about Islam as it is, and not pulling any punches and turning a blind eye towards it. Props to anyone who talks about it, because it is seriously a scary thing to do. I mean, people get killed over talking about Islam. That's it's mind-boggling. We have, and talking again about culture. I don't know how many people died because of Piss Christ again. Oh,
that would be
one.
nobody, and I'm pretty sure that the artist who did that probably got really rich.
And
not dead.
Yeah, you draw a cartoon of Muhammad, and then you wind up splattered on the floor. So
right.
I want to point out one thing. Felicia says there are no John Adams in Islam or Thomas Jeffersons. I was also going to say that you were talking about the fact that Coptic Christians literally put their life on the line. We talk about our founding fathers and say, they put on the line their lives, their fortune, and their sacred honor. We don't have to do that anymore because of the sacrifices that they made. Now,
and
what
most
we're
of
seeing,
them did lose their fortunes.
yes,
We
but I would
don't really pay attention to that after we won the war. These guys went broke.
Well, I would also point out, too, that that's then. I'm talking about now,
Right.
and these are the people in the Middle East that are putting it on the line, and some of them are losing their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor just so that they can have what we have. So I think at this point the John Adams and the Thomas Jeffersons